Imagine, for 1 second, you're lying in bed about to fall asleep when you hear 3 distinct knocks, and they're coming from inside the bedroom. You sit up in bed, shaking with fear, dreading what's to come. Then you hear 3 more knocks, louder this time, slower and more deliberate. You pull the sheets up close to your face in anticipation of what might happen next. Well, what happened next to the young girl in our second story is absolute nightmare fuel. Here are 2 terrifying true ghost stories just for you. I'm your host, Severed Soul. When Evan was about 10 or 11 years old, his father managed the bar inside a country club. From day one, the place made Evan feel really uneasy. It didn't matter how bright it was outside, by nightfall, the building felt wrong. He always brought his Xbox to help keep himself distracted. The layout of the place was quite odd. There was the main bar area, and then a short hallway leading to the bathrooms, and then further down, a mostly forgotten room where his dad had set up a few arcade machines. Hardly anyone used this area because hardly anyone knew it was even there. Through yet another door was a small side room where Evan played games, and then behind that was his father's office. Just outside where the employees parked, there was a small loading dock and a gate leading to a cluster of abandoned swimming pools, empty, cracked, and long out of use. So, one afternoon, feeling bored, Evan decided to go and explore. He wandered into that derelict pool area, and that was when he saw something he'd never forget. At first, he just thought it was a person, but then when he looked closer, he realised it was a tall figure, and it was draped in a black hooded gown. The figure moved quickly across the far end of the broken pool complex. But if a tall, hooded figure in a black cloak wasn't scary enough, as he focused, Evan realised the figure had no visible legs. From the waist down, it simply blurred into nothing. Before he could fully comprehend what he was seeing, it slipped around the corner and vanished. Terrified, but curious in the way only a child can be, Evan went searching for whatever it was, but he never found another trace. Well, that wasn't the only strange encounter Evan had at the country club, and it wasn't the scariest. Another time, again bored of playing his Xbox, he wandered the building when he heard faint, subtle piano music drifting from the ballroom. It was soft, elegant notes echoing through the empty club. Evan followed the haunting music until he entered the ballroom, and as he did, the piano fell silent, and the seat underneath the piano pushed out from underneath it, scraping along the floor. Evan gasped in terror as the seat tipped completely over. There was absolutely nobody else in that ballroom. That very moment haunted Evan for years, but even that wasn't the scariest thing to happen to him. He dreamt of that ballroom over and over, the empty room, the piano playing by itself. In one dream, he was an adult entering the ballroom again as the song played. Only this time, a small child stood facing the stage. When the child turned to look at him, the dream went completely black. There were other occurrences too. In the back rooms, especially the unused ones near the kitchen, he heard voices whispering, doors slamming shut, footsteps pacing when nobody else was around. There were 2 old locker rooms connected to the defunct pool area. Their power had been shut off for years. Evan only went into that part of the building once. So, he stepped inside after hearing a noise and managed only 3 steps before a deafening crash echoed through the darkness, as if a chair had literally been hurled towards him. He saw nothing, but he definitely felt the intent behind it. Whatever was in that room wanted him gone, and, well, Evan wasn't about to stick around and argue his case. But the most terrifying moment happens during closing time one night. His dad was shutting down the bar, and Evan sat in the lobby just off the ballroom. Through the glass doors, He saw a man pacing backwards and forwards, full-bodied, detailed with facial expressions, eyes, arms, everything. Evan just assumed it was a customer waiting to leave, so he looked away for a brief second. When he glanced back, the man's upper body was fading, literally dissolving into nothing, leaving just his legs behind. Evan froze in horror. A moment later, the figure had vanished completely. He ran to his father, sobbing so violently he couldn't even form words. His dad had absolutely no idea what was happening, only that his son was inconsolable. Rumours had always circulated, stories of deaths on the property, including a murder and a suicide. Whether the legends were true or not, Evan couldn't say, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Something was wrong with that country club. Deeply wrong. When Lena was 14, her family of 5 moved into an apartment in a very old town known for its long history of witchcraft, violence, and strange occurrences. Before the move, her family had been close-knit and genuinely happy. Life was stable, safe, and, well, normal, whatever that is. But when they moved into that apartment, everything changed. From the moment they arrived, Lena's mother refused to step inside. For weeks, she stayed at her in-laws' home, saying the place felt unbearably creepy. And, well, nobody took her seriously. Well, not at first, anyway. This, of course, would all change. Lena's mother and brother began hearing hushed voices and faint whispering coming from the bathroom. Even more bizarrely, friends who stayed over could never face looking into any of the mirrors. They said it felt wrong, like something was staring back, something they couldn't see. Many sleepovers ended early because guests were too unsettled to stay the night. And, well, things were about to get much worse. Lena and her sister shared a bedroom directly beside the family bathroom. Well, every night the sisters could both hear heavy footsteps pacing up and down the hallway, while the floorboards creaked with each step. Even their stepfather, an outspoken skeptic who dismissed all talk of ghosts, admitted to seeing an old man walking through the apartment on several occasions. One incident in particular nearly broke their mother completely. She'd been cleaning the apartment, blasting music, Highway to Hell by AC/DC, when she turned around and saw a little girl jumping on her bed. The shock sent her fleeing the apartment in hysterics. She refused to ever be alone inside that apartment again. And if you think that sounds scary, things were about to escalate even further. Lena's sister convinced their mother to download a cheap ghost hunting app so they could communicate with whatever was in the apartment. Lena thought it was a terrible idea, and whether it was a coincidence or not, the paranormal activity intensified almost immediately. Everyone began complaining about a constant feeling of being watched. No matter where you were, no room felt safe. It was as if you were constantly followed and watched by something lurking in the shadows. Lena's 13-year-old sister started drawing 666 and demonic symbols inside their wardrobe. Yeah, some seriously creepy shit. And to top it all off, their mother claimed a tall black shadow figure visited her on an almost nightly basis. Chairs squeaked across the floors by themselves. Objects fell or were thrown across rooms. The activity inside the apartment became constant, like the entity was craving their attention. Oftentimes, they would wake to find kitchen cupboards, drawers, and even the fridge standing wide open, the food inside rotten overnight. Even their skeptical stepfather eventually cracked. He started going AWOL, leaving for months at a time, unable to cope with the relentless disturbances. But the breaking point for Lena came one night when she woke with the overwhelming sense that something was staring at her. Her stepfather, desperate to help, although not desperate enough to actually stick around, I might add, had previously given her a Bible and a cross because she had sunk into a deep, inexplicable depression. Things became so intolerable, Lena turned to religion for comfort. But what happened next was just absolute nightmare fuel. One night, as she lay in bed, she heard 3 slow knocks, and they were coming from inside the wardrobe. A crushing wave of dread rolled over her, so heavy it felt almost physical. Lena sat up in bed and looked over towards the wardrobe. 3 more knocks, louder this time, slower and more deliberate, like the entity was saying, "Yeah, now I've got your attention." Lena gasped in horror, literally shaking with fear under her sheets. And then, with a deafening crash, the wardrobe doors flung open, revealing nothing but pure, pitch-black darkness inside. She ran from that room as quickly as she possibly could and spent the remainder of the night in her mother's bed. By 17, Lena had reached her limit. The entity, or whatever it was, had torn the family apart completely. The depression followed Lena, enough that she ultimately dropped out of school. Her sister turned to, well, she started doing things she shouldn't have been doing. Her brother became bitter and angry, and her stepfather left and never returned. But it was her mother who changed the most. She now claims spirits speak to her constantly. She became cold, sharp and emotionless. No longer the warm, loving mother Lena remembered. Lena eventually cut contact with her entire family. She's still on medication for depression, but she no longer swears in her sleep, no longer dreams of dying, no longer hears the footsteps or the whispers or the knocks. Whatever it was that was haunting that apartment stayed behind. And that's all we have time for today. I really hope you enjoyed those stories. If you did, please help me out by smashing the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and put your thoughts down in the comments section. As always, thanks for watching. I'm your host, Severed Soul.